Hey, good morning, everybody. Um, yeah, we finished Philippians, and a lot of things I could say about Philippians. Um, I think Philippians 1:6 was a verse that in my adult life I began to serve the Lord. That was one of the first verses that I memorized. Let's see. Oh, as a kid, I was kind of mouthy. I, I'm sure, talking back to my parents and whatnot, and especially to my mom. So my dad told me that I had to write out Philippians 2:12, do all things. Now this is King James, do all things without murmurings and disputings 200 times, handwritten on a piece of paper. So, every time I read Philippians 2:12, I remember that one. Philippians has some other emphases that are a little unusual. Philippians is the only other book that talks about us going to heaven when we die, a belief that we all are so familiar with. Um, you've got it in 2 Corinthians 5, 8, and 10. Um, but here, Paul says that he doesn't know whether he wants to stay and minister to the Philippians or depart and be with Christ, which is far better. So you've really only got two passages in all the New Testament that that confirm to us that when we die we'll be in heaven. Which at one point I just thought, what, that doctrine is so much part of our evangelical thinking that I thought there'd be a lot of scriptures that would deal with it. But those are the two. Okay. I enjoyed reading Philippians numerous times this past week, both in the NLT and in the ESV. And as I read them over and over again, one of the things that came to mind that I don't think I had seen before, or quite realized in Philippians, was how many times Paul refers to the Lord's coming. All right, and let me just remind you of where those passages are. There's three times that Paul talks about the day of Christ, and he's referring to the day when Christ will be revealed. That's in chapter 1, verse 6, 1 verse 11, same chapter, and then also 2:16. So the day of Christ is something to look forward to. Then also in chapter 2, you have Paul's statement that at some point every knee shall bow before Christ, whether things in heaven and earth or under the earth. That's got to refer also to Christ's a manifestation in his glory or his coming, although it doesn't specifically say his coming. 3:11, it talks about Paul's desire, longing to be part of the resurrection. And in Paul's theology, as you know, the resurrection happens at the same time Christ comes back. And so there's another reference, even if it's indirect, to Christ's second coming. And then you have chapter 4 and verse 5, where he says the Lord is at hand. Again, thinking of Christ's coming being something sure, even something imminent from his perspective. All right, so that made me think that maybe that is connected to what we also know stands out in Philippians, and that is in chapter 3, verses 12 through 16. His professed statement that he has not attained what he thinks of as perfection or completion, that he's striving on to be complete. And I just wonder if in his thinking, since the day of the Lord, since the day of Christ, since the coming of the Lord is so imminent, so sure, that it's like kind of running the final lap of a race, and where you really pour it on and you give it everything that you got. I kind of sense that feeling for him. And it's not just in that passage in chapter 3 that he has this hope, but rather also in chapter 1, verse 20, he says, let's see, as it is my eager expectation and hope that I will not be at all ashamed, but that with full courage now as always, Christ will be honored in my body. And so Paul there is somehow really strongly desiring not to be ashamed. And that kind of fits with his statement later in the book about how he's just pressing on and nothing's going to stand in his way until he achieves the resurrection. And I also wonder if that's what he's thinking about the Philippians too, because a couple of times he talks about his desire for them that they be innocent and blameless. The first time he says that is in chapter, see my notes here, chapter 1, what is that, 1 verse 10? Yes, so that you may approve what is excellent and so be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. So he's wishing for them the same kind of energy, same kind of focus on the day of Christ, that they would be innocent and without blame. And then chapter 2 and verse 14, do all things without grumbling or questioning. That's the verse I was referring to earlier, that you may be blameless and innocent. And so I think for himself and for them, he's thinking in terms of that imminent return of Christ and the need to be innocent, blameless, living your life in light of that day and that moment. So yeah, that's the main thing I wanted to pass along. Just my insights on that theme, reading through Philippians. Again, it was a joy to do that, and looking forward to the pastoral epistles for this coming week. So thanks for your good work. I look forward to reading and grading your papers. Talk to you later.